Hello, welcome. Thank you for joining me today. I'm going to do a reading for the equinox energies. So we're a few days past it, and I finally feel like I'm starting to get a feel for what's going on. I often get hit like really super hard with the solstices and the equinoxes. Like it seems to be when my kids and I will have like big body upgrades going on and stuff like that. So that's happening again. My son has this really high fever and is like doing all these purging, kind of purging type things, which feels really symbolic because that's what I've been feeling from this energy with this equinox. Is just kind of, it's really interesting too because a lot of the readings have been showing this sort of like higher timeline, higher frequency possibilities, potentials starting to land in our lives or being really active in the field for us to kind of tune into. But then at the same time, in response to that, things from the old timeline, old thoughts, old habits, old memories getting kicked up, as they will. But like things, it feels like things that have been really deep and like lodged in really deeply. I'm just kind of recapping. If you haven't been watching the readings recently or you haven't seen them, this is kind of the themes that have been coming up over and over again in progression, okay, with the new moons and the full moons and in the astrological readings as well. So, but kind of this kind of like things that we couldn't get to before were coming up in response to the higher frequency energy, which we know that as things, in terms of the cosmic energies, the solar energies, they'll push things up and out, which is also obviously happening in the world, okay, but in our individual lives as well. When we start to interface with our higher potentials, our higher potential timelines, it'll start to kick stuff up, okay. So that's, where we've been. But what's really interesting to me on the other side of this equinox is I was feeling, of course, it's always a 0 point field because, it's an energy of balance with the equinox, the equal light and dark, okay? But then it's like, for me, I always kind of feel like everything dissolves. So, makes sense with that 0 point field. But, yeah, it can be a little overwhelming. Like I notice, even in Facebook memories, like I'll notice like years around the equinox, further back, there will always be like, I'll have some weird dream about like things like erupting inside of me, or, I'll like be getting tangled up in like furniture and dropping things and breaking bowls. And, that's just kind of how the energy has translated for me. But it just reminds me of like, of things being kicked up, kicked up like kind of out of nowhere, and it's the same thing with my son's fever where like all of a sudden he's boiling, like his fever got really high. We actually had to give him some stuff, which normally I don't use like, normal medicine, but we had to because it was going really high. But it's like, just this stuff like erupting from within and burning off. So whereas before, with things kind of like coming up, we could see them like, oh, okay, this came from here, this came from this situation, I'm projecting it onto here, or, wow, there's that like reoccurring thought, I know where that came from, that was from my, we could kind of decipher it and understand it. That consciousness work we've been working on for a really long time, but since we've really started interfacing with these higher timelines, it's like then we're getting into those dregs, but we were able to become conscious of them and hold light for ourselves. Now I feel with this equinox 0 point field energy, there's some sort of like, just like the analogy of my son's fever, this like literal like burning off transmutation where the patterns are being burned off in the body. They're being burned, the neural pathways being burned off, where we've already kind of done the groundwork, we've already kind of done the consciousness work, and now they're just kind of like clearing, which for me, I've just felt this huge void and this huge kind of emptiness, which, of course can be kind of uncomfortable, but there definitely was a feeling of excitement and clarity of like, okay, like we're dissolving, we'll see where we're at on the other side. So I'm curious what the cards are going to say, how they're going to lead me to talk about this energy further. There are some other things that have been going on. We'll see if it comes up in the reading. Yeah, so I'm going to pull an overall energy from the Animal Oracle deck, and we'll just dive in here. Okay, oh my god, that's so perfect. Check it out. Frog spirit, clear out the clutter. Exactly. It's like things are just being cleared out. And again, it's like we've already kind of seen, like, we've been doing the house cleaning, like, okay, I don't want this anymore. I'm going to put it over here in this, Goodwill box, and I don't want this. I'm going to give it to my friend. And we have everything kind of laid around, and now it's like, we're moving it out. But I feel like there's a lot of assistance with this too, and I might get into that later, but just to throw that out there for now, I feel like there's this assistance with clearing out the clutter, a higher self, a higher frequency type of energy that's again, kind of that transmutation where it's just like helping us remove it. So anyway, that I'm going to leave that there for now. I'll probably talk about that more later, but let me move into the tarot. I love that that card came up. I love it so much. That's like the exact card. If I was going to like go through and pick one to represent what I'm feeling, that's what I would have picked. And there it is. There it is. 28 card, 10. 10 being a number of completion. So there's that there too. Am I cutting off my head? Not really. Okay. So we get, these are quite a few cards, but I'm going to go ahead and take them. We have the Three of Earth, okay, and the Page of Water. So the Three of Earth, again, being the soul contract card, our soul mission, our soul families, okay? So this is a collective movement that we're going through right now, this clearing out. This is also a card, I often read this as like, well, because it's like an innocent, childlike card, but I see it as like the pure channel, okay? So like a purification energy, which goes along with this. We're purifying out this channel. This is exactly what we're meant to be doing at this time. Our soul groups, our soul missions. This is where we're at, okay, right with the equinox. I just heard somebody talking about how the spring equinox and this equinox linking up, because in that 0 point field it's like they kind of just collapse into one thing, but the March equinox being kind of like the planting of seeds of this energy, and this equinox, this fall equinox, well, depending on where you're at, you know, the September equinox being one where it's really starting to come through, where we're really bridging onto the physical plane with these energies that we started feeling in around the March equinox, which is really when everything shifted for me, where it was like just woke up in a completely different land. But I feel like there's been like, you know, just, you know, a lot of purging, okay? I feel like this is like the big purge, you know, the big purge where everything that's been kind of like sloughing off, you know, during that time really coming through, okay? But again, this signifying, you know, the sort of the mission that it was always meant to be at this time, this being the clear channel, okay? So then we get, let me just look at these a little bit. Okay, I am going to jump ahead to the Hierophant, because one of the things that I was feeling from this card, and I almost said, but I usually say it with this card, and here it is just the timing, the divine timing. I guess I did say that, like it was always destined to happen at this time. For me, this is our soul blueprint. This is what we wrote in. Like here's the quill, you know, here's the pen. There's like some, yeah, the rings over here. It's like we married ourselves. We committed. We did a full commitment to this path that we're on. We chose it long ago. We chose it long ago. We chose it with others, you know, in collaboration with our soul family, with those that are also here to do this piece, okay? Right now, that piece being really clearing out and making room, making room. This is often, I read this card, kind of like my, okay, so kind of like what you feel you can't have, what you feel you can't have. I know the traditional Four of Cups is like, you're so busy looking at what you lost that you can't see, you know, that this other glorious thing is coming in. But that's what I often lean into with this card in particular in this deck, is like, you can't quite see what's coming in. What's coming in is coming in from somewhere else where you can't see it, okay, in a sense, but you can feel it. You can feel it. So that is actually what's coming through this channel as it's clearing, as was intended with your soul mission, okay? There's this higher timeline coming through and being able to land, okay? Here's what's clearing out. I've been reading this card recently, and I think partially because in this deck, it's like there are these geese, but they just look like they're splattered. You know, it's like a split, like they just kind of splay out. Okay, here's a unity card. Here's the unity consciousness card where everything is one. You know, it's the Ace of Water. It's the Ace. It's the one of intuition. It's the Pisces card. You know, it's like there's that pearl. There's that pearl where we're all one in consciousness. There's that unity consciousness, and here's the separation consciousness that we're clearing at this time. So this message feels really clear to me, okay? Just kind of validating what I was saying, validating, clearing the clutter. But what are we actually clearing? We're clearing everything that is connected to this illusion of separation, to this illusion of anything being random, to us ever being victims of anything, okay? We're clearing that out and coming back into the truth of reality, which is this oneness. And I feel like there's just this really, really, really big move right now that, whereas we've been working on this on a certain level, and now it feels almost like a cyber blast, because of the energies, because of the energies and the thinning of the veils at this time, there's just like a real bleed through where we're making a lot of progress. That's what it feels like to me. We're making progress that we were preparing for. We were preparing for before this time which was always going to land now. Okay. So it's really exciting. It's really exciting. So anyway, I'm going to pull a couple more cards and see what else needs to be said about this. Yeah, oh God, that's so beautiful. Okay, so we get the Star card and the Four of Wands. This is like the alignment with the higher truth. And this is my ultimate unity consciousness card, where it's like you're coming into union. You're coming into union with everything. All the pieces coming back together. If this is all the pieces splayed apart, you know, and this is the goal, you know, this is the goal, this is the truth of reality, this is all the pieces coming back together, all the pieces coming back together. And why? Because we're in such a clear channel of alignment. In some decks, this is like a healing card. Well, I guess it is a healing card, but in the first deck I ever had, the Mother piece, it was like the feeling of being held in the arms of the goddess, where it's like you're just held. So this is the kind of the feeling that I was getting at, that I was talking about a little earlier, where it's like there's this assistance from the invisible realm, because we're so in alignment. We're so in alignment with this the behind that which we can't see. We're so in alignment with it, and we have such a clear channel. Okay, here's the clear channel, because we are clearing out. The point is to clear out this clutter, right? The point is to clear this out. But we've done that, like I was saying, we've done the kind of like groundwork for that, and now there's this assistance coming in. This assistance coming in. So again, being the feeling of being held in the arms of the goddess, where it's like we're literally being supported. So this came through for me, actually. I was starting to feel this energy, this certain energy, and I just noticed, because in a lot of the readings we were getting the Seven of Cups, and there was this message that kept coming of like feeling out into the field, feeling out into a wider field, your energy field, the arc field, whatever, and like tuning into the voice of your intuition to find those potentials that you had written in for yourself, and that you had written in with your soul family, and aligning with them and focusing on them, instead of focusing on, you know, kind of like the separation nightmare version of reality, right? So that's what had been coming up in the readings, where you're feeling out, you're focusing on it, you're aligning with it, you're putting your energy, because, you know, we all know that, or you know, we're all learning that that's how we manifest and pull things into being. We align with potentials that have already been set up for ourselves, by ourselves, and we pull them in, okay? But what was coming through for me this week was more about feeling out again into the behind, into that behind realm, into the arc field, into the energy, but feeling energetic. So it can be like aspects of ourselves that are ready to step in and support us. And we can kind of like get a feel for what those are by what we're drawn to, maybe what we admire in other people, or in movies or books that we read, or music, certain music from certain cultures. It's like we're resonating with a certain archetype in a way, like a certain expression, a certain, you know, like musicians, or or galactic, or feline, or earthy, or garthy, whatever. Okay, feeling into those different aspects, being really drawn to them, and then like immersing ourselves in them, maybe dressing in a certain way, or getting paintings or photographs or drawing or reading, or listening to music of that type, and kind of like osmosing that energy, because it's really wanting us to meet it. So that was another thing that's really been coming through, along the lines of feeling out into the wider, putting our attention on the wider, because it's like, our five senses can only see about this much, right? And if we're only looking there, then we're only living and creating from this. But we create and we pull through that which we give our attention to. So, going wider and allowing ourselves to like strengthen our intuition to perceive, and that behind to pull through. But what I'm feeling for right now is the energies, like the literal energy. So what's interesting is this card came up, and it reminds me of like years ago. I was doing a session with somebody, and I felt this energy that somehow this card kind of reminds me of, because it's like watery. But I felt this certain energy coming in, and it was really thick and like heavy, but not in like the traditional use of the word heavy. It was just like thick and like molasses, and it kind of like osmosed into her body, like from just the field. It was like coming in on all levels. And the word I heard was plasma. And I didn't know what that meant, and I thought maybe I was just like making it up, but you know, I've since learned to like trust that kind of like random stuff, because you know, it's just intuition. And hi, buddy. The black bumblebees, they live inside of these yucca stalks. I have a yucca stalk right here, and I think he just crawled out of there, which is really cute. My daughter has one in her room, and she had one crawl out of the one we had in her room just now. So I'm just noticing the black bumblebees. I don't know. I mean, they do kind of defy the laws of physics. Like, how do they even fly in the air, you know, with the bumbling? But anyway, so maybe that's related to the plasma energy, but trusting that intuition and knowing that when things kind of come in out of like left field, that, you know, there's something to it. But so what I've been feeling, okay, so then later I heard people talking about plasma, the plasma energy, and I was like, oh my God, that's what I felt, and that was the word that I heard. So it was really helpful for me in trusting myself. So now, you know, years later, I'm tuning into this other energy, and for me, I'm not feeling it on somebody else. I'm feeling it in myself, but it kind of comes in. This is just how I perceive it, and I'm just describing it because I think we all can tune into energies like this, but we don't like focus there. We might be focusing here, or we might be focusing, if we are focusing in the behind, you know, we might be focusing on our, you know, the other things I listed, the potentials or aspects of ourselves. But just drawing our attention to, we can also focus on the subtle energies that are coming in, like the solar energies, or, you know, even different entities that are around. But the one that I'm feeling for right now, and I'm just sharing that because I like to point that out to people. I like to kind of like draw attention to things, because then it might like activate a certain awareness within somebody else, where they're like, oh yeah, you know, I feel a certain energy, and I just kind of, because that's what I used to do. I'd feel energies and I'd just kind of ignore them. I'd just kind of be like, I don't know, you know. But it's like just recently, actually, I've gotten this sort of download on focus, and like how we can literally focus on anything and we can get information off of it. So I've been doing that in terms of like, if I feel a certain energy, I can identify like, you know, it's a galactic energy, or it's an angelic energy, or just fine tuning my perception of the different energies that feeling coming in. Okay, so this one that I'm feeling, for me, it comes in kind of like this. It comes in like a shaft of light, and it has like a really, I was thinking of it as like really like a laser-like type of focus. And it felt really purifying to me, which is why I'm bringing this up. It felt really purifying, like it was just kind of coming in and clearing the clutter. I knew that it was something that I could lean into. Not at first. At first, I was just kind of like, oh, okay, there's something from behind, and I feel like this is connected to, you know, there's like a bridge in this, a bridge to these higher realms, and there's lots of information in there. But then recently I felt the energy of like crystalline energy, like it was like a prism, and it was so fast, and it held all this information, and it had like a strong current to it. And then I started hearing other people talking about this crystalline energy, so I was like, okay, that hasn't happened in a while. So I'm learning about this from the inside. I don't know a whole lot about what other people are saying, but listening to what other people say is helpful, because it can activate an awareness that helps us tune in. But the point being to really tune in is to gather that information that we have about it, like how do we relate to the specific energy, and what piece does it hold for us, and what can we know about it. So that's why I'm sharing, just to kind of spark you know, validate if you are already feeling these types of energies, or maybe inspire to like kind of lean in, and like my example where with the plasma, where I was like, I don't know, I'm making stuff up. And then even with the crystalline, you know, but then it comes in later and validates. So to trust your intuition, and to trust the things that come in for you, or to even like allow yourself to open and just kind of like play around with it, and let it be like really loose and childlike, like you're you know, you're creating a game, you know, you're creating a game in your backyard, because that's really what this is. It's like we decide what the rules are, we decide how we define reality, and we create the parameters of our hologram, and then, you know, life starts to fall within those rules. You know, we have the power and the freedom to do that. We just have to choose it, and not look over here at the rules, the scattered rules that have been assigned to us, but to create our own realities, because we have the right and freedom to do that. And then everything is tailor-made to us, right? So okay, so I'm sharing my little version of reality just as an example, because yeah, it was really empowering and awesome. And you know, I do that in sessions and also in these readings, like how I interpret the cards and how I put it together, and just kind of like weaving realities that are empowering. And some people might think it's make-believe, and they might think you're, just lost in a fairy world, but that's kind of viewing through this lens, right? When we start to reach into this alignment and this unity consciousness, and this purity, we start to realize that we are creator beings, and that we do have the freedom and the obligation, really, to claim that power and to help weave things in a way that brings more of this, that brings our version of this oneness into the world. We play our part, we weave our part, okay, which is part of this contract that we wrote for ourselves. So what we're really doing is we're reading the book that we wrote. We're reading the book that we wrote, and we're reading it however we end up reading it, but that we can go way outside of the boundaries of what we've been in, and we're doing this alongside our soul family, and we're encouraging our soul family when we share our stories of our own unique creations and interpretations and explorations in life. We can inspire and liberate others to do the same, but we also activate each other's codes, so, okay. That was a big ramble, but that's okay. I feel like I'm going to pull a fairy card. Speaking of being in the fairy realm, this isn't the most beautiful deck. It's not my favorite deck, but I'm kind of down here in the desert house again for a while. I was down here extra time because my daughter wasn't well, so I was down here for 2 months, and then I finally got back to my home, and now my son is not doing well, so I'm down here again, and I don't have all my cards, but I am going to pull this card from this deck I don't love, but okay, vision, yeah, there we go. Yeah, it's okay, these cards are kind of cute, but yeah, so vision, there it is, right? What's our vision? What's the vision that our soul family is holding together? What's the vision that we programmed in? And can we tune into it? And can we flesh it out with our attention and with our with the way that we piece the story together, the way that we read the signs, the way that we the way that we notice the patterns and the themes, and can we trust our vision and our interpretation and our right to play in it any way that we want? Okay, so that feels like a little bit of a validation there. 22 minutes. All right, I'm going to move into the Light Seers deck and see if this wants to go in another direction, or maybe we want to just close up here. Yep. Okay, I think we're just kind of repeating. I think that might have been the message. This is a Page of Cups again. Same one as this card, okay? But it's very much kind of with the theme of the vision. I mean, he's tuning in. What's funny is these are his legs. His legs are up in the air. So he's tuning into this kind of higher version of himself where pigs in fact fly. This card came up in the Taurus reading, okay? So it's like, yeah, it's like tuning into that higher version of reality outside of the restrictions that we've been living in and have been placed on, okay? And allowing ourselves to perceive this. But just to summarize what I was talking about when I got into all those other energies and the crystalline energy, I'm really feeling that energy is assisting us, again, like the goddess energy, assisting us in cleansing this clutter, okay? So leaning into these higher energies and finding them, finding that vision, finding that connection. And so what I found myself doing was I just connected to that energy, to that kind of reminds me, I don't know if you can see it, but there's like these white kind of rays. That's kind of how I was feeling that energy. And I just connected with them. I used to do this with the solar energy too, because I was having a lot of like body symptoms, like kind of really intense body symptoms with the solar energies, the flares and stuff like that. I still do. I kind of am right now, but it's not nearly as bad as it was before. But I just ended up like making friends with it and just being like asking it, like kind of directing it and guiding it. And again, like participating with it rather than being a victim of anything, and like remembering that like we can use our will and we can use our astral focus and abilities to communicate with and to guide and to set intentions, you know. So I'm just going to use this as the crystalline energies. With these energies, I just asked them to help me clear, because that's what I felt like they wanted to do. I just invited them to help me clear. I invited them to help me transmute, to, you know, clear from my neural pathways, clear from my mental body, my emotional body, my physical body, and you know, not in the sense of like, oh, save me, do it for me, because you know, like I said in the beginning, it's like we've been bumping up against this stuff, you know, at least the collective in these readings. It's like we're bumping up against this stuff as we move forward onto our higher timelines. We're aware of them. Because I had this feeling, I was sort of like, I know what I'm doing, you know, I know what I'm doing. You know, I've seen it on deeper and deeper levels, and I kind of felt like I'm not going to be able to stop. Like, how am I going to be able to stop? Like, where you feel like you're at the end of a wall and you just can't go through. And yet I felt that so many other times in my life where I was like, well, somehow I will, you know, somehow I will, I know I will. And it's like that feeling of like, once you become aware of it, it just kind of transmutes. Like all of a sudden it's just gone. It's like, you don't have to linearly walk your way through, you know, every block that you're clearing. It's like at a certain point it just goes. And that's what I feel this point is right now. And that's what I feel these energies are helping with, like literally helping to transmute, helping to just clear. And of course I don't understand how it works, because you know we can only see from the level of consciousness we're at, and there are all these different dimensional perspectives and angles. But you know, as far as I can see in this moment right now, there is something about the energies. There are energies available right now to help us go to that next level, where if we've done enough of the consciousness work, there can be, you know, almost like when you go to an energy worker, and because that's what happens in the sessions. It's like, you know, I'll see, it's like a psychic surgery, you know, where you see the patterns that are ready to go, and you just kind of like hold space with that consciousness, your higher self and their higher self together, and the energy just kind of finds its alignment, and it clears and it rebalances, and it does that. I feel like we're able to join in communion with these higher energies to kind of like have them do energy work on us, where it's like, just witness me, witness this clearing with me, witness these distortions in me, and help me to bring them into balance, you know. So leaning into that invisible realm, like he is leaning into that invisible realm, which is really a manifestation. You know, it's like nothing is really outside of ourselves. It's still us helping us, but from a certain dimensional perspective, we can think of it as something outside of ourselves, right? We can think of it as, you know, whatever personified form that feels right to us, you know. In this case for me, it's this crystalline energy. It's this crystalline energy that's helping me clear my density and come into more of a crystalline structure myself. Like that's the imagery that's working for me. It's also helping me to harness my will and my surrender to transform at this time where it feels like it's really possible. You know, that 0 point field, it's like the liquidization, like the caterpillar that liquidizes before it becomes a butterfly. So, okay, we're at 27 minutes. I'm going to pull one more closing card from this deck that I can never remember the name of. And we get two cards. Protection and Grace. Okay, so that's so beautiful. So that kind of reminds me again. Look at these cards, aren't they gorgeous? So earthy. These cards really go together too with these trees. Okay, and peeking around the corner is like this ancestor type of energy. Wow. And there's this red sort of like ruby in this chest right here. And over here are these red mushrooms. Not all the cards are like this. They don't all look like that. Like some of them are, just to show you, some of them are very different. But these two cards, but these two cards are very much the same with the trees. These trees and the red mushrooms, the red sort of ruby, this light coming through, the stag in the background, you know, this ancestor peeking through. It's like this very much seems to validate what I was talking about, these guides and these energies, whether we want to think of them as our higher aspects or our future selves or as ancestors or as angels or as crystalline energies, however we want to lean into the behind. And call forth assistance with this jump, you know, this jump out of, you know, separation consciousness and into unity consciousness, which very much this is sort of the step that we're taking right now. Okay, these two kind of being opposites. You know, there's this road and there's this road. There's this frequency and there's this frequency, and there being a lot of support right now with this alignment, with in the arms of the goddess energy coming in, and with that which is behind, that we can lean into for support and communicate with and call forth however we want. So I'm going to stop there, and I hope that came through in a coherent way. I feel like this is a further step beyond where we were at in the other readings, moving into more of being assisted in a way where we're ready for that. We're ready to kind of hand it over. And I'm really excited to see where we're at on the other side of this kind of passage that we're in right now, because it just really feels like things are going to start to roll. I think this is also true in the world where, a lot of the darkness and the distortions that have been coming up to be seen, but they haven't really like moved forward yet. I just feel like things are going to start to roll. It's like when we've done enough of this sort of like magically supportive clearing clearing of the clutter, clearing of this denser interpretation and view of reality, and we start to step more and more into the soul, the soul mission with others, and more into this collaboration and joining of the pieces together, whether that be our soul family or the pieces within ourselves, the pieces of fragmented pieces to ourselves. That's when we can really start moving forward. And right now we're moving forward in kind of small ways. This is the beginning of the path, but I feel like this is a time when things are really shifting, and that they're going to move faster after this. So that's sort of what I'm feeling. So thanks for listening. And yeah, I'd love to hear if you are feeling similar energies, or how this is landing for you. I mean, I probably won't hear. I probably won't hear, but I am curious. I am curious, and starting to commune with more people now that I'm back at my home, and starting to powwow with like my other like-minded people, and seeing that there really is a bunch of us feeling similar things. So anyway, thank you for joining me, and I'll see you next time if I do.